time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. And yes, somehow without any prior planning, we are dressed alike.
We're wearing the same. If you're not watching this on the YouTube channel, you're missing out because we both popped on and I immediately went, son of a, why are we dressed the same? Why do we have the same
I'm
hoodie
gonna
on?
screenshot this so we can tweet it out for those that don't watch the video because it's pretty special. It really is.
Why are we dressed the same?
Not only are we dressed the same, we're wearing built gear. Oh, so all the haters are gonna come out and say that we planned it. Yep. We got a pretty full docket. We're going to talk a little bit about Alaska Airlines' changes, goods and bads there. We've got a listener question from our Slack community about booking a guest of honor booking. I have a question for Richard that I haven't posed to him yet. I'm going to do what he does to me. And I'm going to have
Surprise.
a suspenseful question. It's not really
Surprise
that
and
suspenseful.
delight, hopefully.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if I delight you or not. And then if you're just tuning into the show, love it if you leave us a review and a rating. That's the best way for us to move up the rankings. You can also shoot us a text or leave us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. You can email at pizzainmotion.com for questions that we will answer on the air as well. And for this week, we have a new sponsor who's going to be with us for a little while. Thrifty Traveler Premium is sponsoring us this week. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in the middle of the show. It's actually a product I've used for a little over a year now as a paying customer and definitely like the deals that I see. We'll talk a little bit more about it over the next handful of weeks. They've got some cool giveaways that they're bringing members and a bunch of other fun stuff for folks that are tuning in. Last but not least, if you want to support the show, you can sign up for our Slack community. There's some links in the show notes for that. We do have a lot of fun there, making fun of each other and answering questions. Mr. Kerr and I. And Julian is surprisingly active in there, throwing shade at both of us.
Easy targets.
We are easy targets. And boy, when he sees that we're both wearing the same clothes, it's going to be something special.
Yeah, well, we do what we can.
So let's start with a quick listener question, and then we can get into Alaska Airlines. This one comes from the Slack community, and our good friend Molly, she asked about guest of honor bookings. And the reason why I wanted to cover this is just because, surprisingly enough, I hear this a lot from folks who are just new to Globalist and don't really realize how the guest of honor booking benefit works. I think it's one of the most unique benefits out there in hotel loyalty. You know, how valuable it is to you really depends on how you use your points. But she asked about how you make a guest of honor booking. And I think the biggest misconception I think that people don't realize is that you can only do guest of honor on award bookings. You can't do it on unpaid bookings. And the points have to come from your account, right? Well, yeah, it is phone now, but this brought up the discussion in the Slack community where, you know, and I'll be curious, have you done a guest of honor booking, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Done
Yeah, okay.
dozens of them over the years, yeah.
I
Since it became a thing.
assume you do it the same way I do it, which is I grab the award room online first, and then I call and ask them to turn into a guest of honor booking.
I don't. I usually just drop my concierge an email that says,
Gotcha.
hey, Michelle, will you take care of this booking? Like, I check award space first, but I usually leave that up to the person that I'm doing a guest of honor booking for. But it's come in handy a whole lot. I mean, I've planned 3 honeymoons for built co-workers, and I'll throw in a guest of honor booking as like a little surprise for them. Be like, hey, hope you guys enjoy the benefits. So that's where I think it was intended to be used.
Yeah.
Not intended to be used to those of you on Reddit selling your guest of honor bookings. Please stop doing that. You're going to ruin it for all of us.
Yes, they will get rid of it. They will get rid of this benefit. Stop. Don't do that.
Stop doing that. I really enjoyed it. But no, I dropped my Hyatt concierge an email that says, hey, please make this guest of honor booking for this person, and here's a World of Hyatt number. And she takes care of the rest.
Yeah, and so the person who's staying will get all the benefits of being globalist. So they get late checkout, they get whatever the breakfast benefit is for the property, all that stuff. And they also get stay credit for it. So if they're trying to chase Hyatt status, they get your status for the trip, but they also get stay credits for however many nights that they're in the hotel towards, you know, whatever status they're chasing. So I actually used some guest of honor bookings this year to help my business partner Russell get Globalist, and also, you know, helped him with the benefits. He comes to DC pretty frequently, and the Park Hyatt DC is a great hotel. They have some unbelievable suites in that property, and they take really good care of Globalists. So he's used my guest of honor booking there a few times, you know, for trips with his family, and now he's officially, as of yesterday, a Hyatt Globalist himself. So,
ooh, welcome, Russell. Yeah, it's great. I've done it, I think, for a few people at Grand Hyatt Kauai, right? You get no resort fee, free parking, lounge access, upgrade, breakfast.
Yeah,
huge for somebody who doesn't have, like, huge for a property like that. So all really clutch stuff. So please, Hyatt, we really like guest of honor. Don't make it go anywhere.
Right. And people stop doing stupid things with guest of honor bookings, because that will make it go somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Alaska. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Thrifty Traveler Premium. This week's episode is sponsored by Thrifty Traveler Premium, as I mentioned earlier in the show. I have been a paying member of Thrifty Traveler Premium since last year when they ran a deal for Black Friday, if I remember correctly. When I went together to put together the script for the ad, I figured that I would look through my emails to give examples of the sorts of deals that I get on a daily basis. And a few of the most recent one, Mexico beaches for 9,000 Southwest points round trip, Raleigh to Europe or Africa for 30,000 points one way in business class, 55,000 points one way in business class to Frankfurt for most of the summer 2024. Based on where we sit today, these are all incredible deals. The biggest complaint that I hear from normal everyday folks is they don't know how to find these deals. Earning points, maximizing bonus categories. Most of them have figured that part out. We talk a lot about that. But, where do they find the deals if they're not a nerd like you and I, and they're constantly scanning for things like this? So, in my opinion, the savings on any one of the deals I mentioned would more than pay for a year of Thrifty Traveler Premium. And during the sponsorship, Miles to Go listeners and viewers get a $10 discount off of their first year if they use the code GO10, GO10. You'll also be supporting the show by supporting one of our sponsors. You can select to receive deals from just your home airport or any range of airports. And if you want to be truly crazy like me, you can toggle on the nerd alerts in the advanced setting, where you get access to last-minute award deals and other nerdy stuff that you and I like, Mr. Kerr.
Everybody loves deal, and I'm waiting for my first nerd alert so I can jump on the...
Nerd alert. That's usually what we do, like me going to the Faroe Islands this summer without you, even though you're like, hey, how come you didn't invite me, man? All right,
exactly
let's talk.
What it sound like.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, let's talk about Alaska Airlines, especially because we just answered a listener question last week about, hey, here's the best... Here are the best
Talks
sweet
a lot
spots.
about Alaska, and then...
Yeah. Here are all these sweet spots that we just pushed right through the shredder. So, have you had a chance to digest these? I've been reading, and they're I've seen goods and bads, but I'm curious, where your head is on this.
My head is it could have been worse, like we've seen with most programs. Could have definitely been worse. So there's two things about the coverage that I've read. Everybody's celebrating getting rid of the multiple award charts. To me, that means the sweet spots, a lot of them are dead now because there's no specific award charts for partners. So I don't really count that as a good thing. I don't have any problem going and clicking on a different award chart. The second thing that I think Lucky calls out, but everybody else is kind of skimmed over, and we talked about this a little bit in the Slack group, is that these charts that they have now, which are region-based and great, we love charts, it is all starting at. This is not what it's going to cost. This is what it's going to start at. And unfortunately, I think you and I know what that means, is that it's not going to start at that lowest price very often. Now, could be wrong. This goes into effect in March of 24, so we still got 4 or 5 months of time recording. But, man, I don't know what to think until we see what starting at means. If that means one day a month, well, then let's just get rid of the charts and call it like it is. What do you think?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First off, I think, one of the things that came up in the Slack community, which I thought was interesting, I don't follow the Alaska program as closely as a lot of folks do. I know it's been a hugely valuable program for tons of folks. I've just never collected Alaska miles. I follow it. I understand where the sweet spots are because we talked about it last week, but I don't have a stash of Alaska miles. And so there were interesting things that I think loyal folks of the program noted. And I think, so one of the things I heard consistently, and this wasn't just from, say, bloggers, I heard this from people in the Slack community, on a lot of those sweet spots, it had become tough to find enough inventory for them. So there's this balance of all right, if they've got a really great deal on Fiji, but they never make Fiji Airways available, how valuable is that? Again, we're willing to look for the needle in the haystack, so we're more likely to find it than your average Joe. But but it's not much of a benefit for the average person. I thought there was an interesting observation from Jeremy in the Slack community. He talked about the fact that he's based in Seattle. He talked about the fact that for people that don't live in an Alaska hub, that the prices are going down on domestic awards, whereas for him living in Seattle, the price is going up a little bit. So that's definitely a downside for him. Ultimately, to your point about it could have been worse, I think there do appear to be a sweet spot's probably not the right word to say, but there do appear to be affordable places to book awards now. But I think it comes down to two things, and you mentioned one of them explicitly and one of them implicitly. Explicitly, it's all right, are these the starting prices, and how frequently will they go above that, and how much availability will they release? And so the part that wasn't clear to me, and maybe you've read this and understand it better than I do. So I'm going to use Air Canada as an example with United. If you want to price a Saver Award, because I was just doing this on United, United with Air Canada mixed in there, you have to have Saver availability in Air Canada. And so if they're charging just a little bit above Saver, it just won't price at all. It won't show you the option. So I'm making numbers up, but if it was supposed to be 15,000, Aeroplan points, and instead it's 17,000, United will just return, no inventory available. So I'm not sure if this is true variable pricing from Alaska, and we'll see that, or if it's just when the partner doesn't have Saver, which for a lot of their partners, they really do have like Saver and non-Saver buckets as opposed to variable charts. Do we just not see inventory for this stuff like we do now?
Yeah, brings up an interesting point here, which is one additional change is you'll be able to book one ticket with multiple partners, which you could not do in the previous thing. You can do that now.
Yep.
To your question, I don't know. So if Malaysia Airlines doesn't have Saver, or where I think this would play in most is if Alaska itself doesn't have Saver and you find Saver on a partner and I got to connect from Atlanta to Seattle to then catch Japan Airlines to Tokyo, am I going to be able to do that, or is it just going to say, nope, you can't? Like there's very rarely Saver space on the Atlanta to Seattle daily flight that Alaska flies from here, which is why I don't even consider it. So how is that going to play out?
Same thing with Dulles too. Like they do a really good job selling their seats on their domestic stuff.
Yeah. So in that case, like, I don't know, it'll probably just be like the other programs where it's like no availability. But I think it'll be really cool when you do find that Saver space between two partners. You can piece together something. And the stopovers are here to stay, which is great to see as well. That stopovers, even on one-way awards, you can make happen. Kind of funky the way they did these charts here, where it's like basically only 3 worldwide charts, and you just got to know which one is applicable for travel to that region or within that region. And then a little bit different for the Americas if you're starting here in America. So just pay attention to that. But again, still four months until this rolls out, and the proof will be in the pudding when we take a look at that award space in March and see, what these starting at prices actually mean.
Yeah, and I think, what's harder to figure out right now is that like there are some what I would call speed bumps. So I brought one of these up in the Slack community. So from my home airport of Dulles to most places in, say, like Japan, I'm going to be just over 7,000 miles flown. Now,
and you're that next huge band that's pretty expensive from 7,000 to 10,000 miles on the chart. Yeah.
Exactly right. And it's unclear to me, like, I use Great Circle Mapper to come up with those mileages. I assume it'll end up being over 7,000. So, 10,000 is not a lot per se, but that gets me thinking that if they're banding them like that they may make stuff available when true Saver inventory isn't necessarily there because they're pricing in more, a higher fee in miles for these longer flights. But it's still a little unclear. And so it's, I think the changes are probably going to be net either neutral or positive for people who are miles and points nerds, because I think they'll find these, little loopholes.
Find the itineraries that are 6,998 miles.
Right.
Which I've definitely done before.
Yep. I do think it seems overly complicated for, ma and pa kettle. Like this is going to be, if it's more bookable, great. Like, sure. Like that's always good if there's more availability, but I'm not sure that it's going to be immediately evident to someone what it costs them to book an award. It's going to take a little bit of work to sort of figure it out, because ultimately, once you start using partners, there are Asian itineraries for me that are under 7,000 miles, and there are ones that are over 7,000 miles. I know how to convert that math and figure out which connecting airport to use. I don't expect most people to do that.
No, which is why most people will just go to the Alaska website, hit use miles, book it in, and whatever it says the cost is there. They're not even going to be aware that there's charts here. Right. I do agree. It seems a little bit overly complicated, but it's kind of been like Alaska's theme as well. Right now, I think the currency is still valuable, still going to be valuable here.
Yeah.
It's just traditionally been hard to get outside of picking up that Bank of America Alaska card, every however many years you can do that. Like I keep a stash of Alaska miles, but it's always under 100,000 because you can't get Alaska miles. So
right.
I've really enjoyed the program from afar, but just haven't been able to interact with it as much as I probably want to, because of how difficult it is for me living in Atlanta to get Alaska miles. So the last thing that Lucky calls out here, I think his article is the best of everybody that covered these changes, is that there's going to be regular award sales, apparently, up to 50% off. So that'd be cool, again, to see how these sales roll out and what that looks like.
Periodic discounts or bonuses for members. What a concept. We don't have any other concepts that do stuff like that, right?
Yeah, we'll see. But it looks like, I think the other side of relief from people is it looks like they largely left their MVP statuses alone.
Yep.
It's not nowhere mentioned in here. And I know people who have their Alaska status love it. So yeah, look forward to March and seeing, again, how this rolls out and what the prices are like. Because to your point, and even when I was looking for Starlux space that we mentioned in the last episode, like I clicked through so many months and there was no Saver space.
Yeah.
Which even to the point where a guy in the Slack community gave everybody a heads up, hey, I'm going to drop these 2 flights, cancel them, put them
Yeah.
back in inventory.
I think that was Sean. Yeah.
Yeah, because every single day I looked, it was 165,000 miles for business,
Right.
and he said he had some. I think it was 75,000, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," because I couldn't find that at all. So maybe this makes it all better. I don't know, man. Well, again,
And that used
we'll
to be
see.
like reliably nerds would do that. We would swap dates on Flyer Talk and be like, "Hey, I'm releasing these seats. Anybody want it?" And back then,
Oh yeah,
the seats would almost always go right back in inventory. Not just Alaska, but American was pretty famous for this as well. So it was, like, "Hey, I'm releasing 2 seats. Dallas to Tokyo. Who wants them?" And
still do
inevitably
that for
sold out.
Hyatt rooms all the time. So Hyatt award rooms do go back in inventory again the vast majority of the time in my experience.
Right.
So I am in several Facebook groups where somebody says, "Hey, dropping this Park Hyatt Maldives," which I don't even think Park Hyatt Maldives is hard to get anymore. Whatever space these days is hard to get. Grand Hyatt Kauai or Ventana Big Sur. People will say, "Hey, I'm about to cancel this. If anybody wants to jump on and grab these rooms."
Yeah, we really struggled finding Grand Hyatt Kauai this summer. We ended up finding it a couple of dates at the last minute, but not enough to stay there. If you remember, we used it sort of like, day pass to the hotel sort of thing to hang out for the pools. I'm almost to the point of asking you my question, which isn't going to be that consequential. So
the way you stumbled over that, I was like, "Oh, where are we going now?"
Yeah, I know. No, I want to cover my trip home for folks. So first off, we talked a little bit about Lisbon. I still love that.
Dude, everybody went nuts over Lisbon, even like in our Slack community, but also I got a lot of mentions, and I was in New York again last week, and apparently we have a few people who listen to the podcast and tell me about it. Like, "Oh, you haven't been to Lisbon yet, Richard, you love it, it's totally you." And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I really want to, that's my follow-up question. What do you think a richer destination is? Like, why is that?
I think a richer destination is a destination where you don't feel like you're going to get gouged to do things.
Yep.
And that you can do normal people things. So, and like, I think there's a lot of that. So, like, even though there are a bunch of hills in Lisbon, I still think the city's very walkable. I think it's very kid-friendly. Like, sure, there are some parts that aren't the best, but waterfront's great. And then, like, I hope I get the number right. Tram 28 is just an old wooden tram that sort of runs up through the hills of town and, like, up by the castle and everything. And it's, again, don't quote me on this, I want to say it's like €4 to ride it, and you can ride it all day. And so, like, it's a very cheap, meaningful way to sightsee the town. And it's just like it stops a bunch of places, and you get out, take pictures, wait for the next tram 28 to come. Like, it's it's all very approachable. I think that they're very accepting of kids there. I think Portugal as a whole shares that with Italy. It's just like they love kids. Where I've definitely been restaurants I've walked into in France where they're like, oh, the same thing in London too. Yeah, so I think that's probably why people think you would like it. It's also a great food city, and you don't need to spend a ton of money to eat well. So, like, there are some expensive places there, but there's also the Time Out Market, which is down in the water in the Casa de Sojo region. And I think they have a Time Out Market in New York now. There's one in Miami, but I think the Lisbon was an early one. So you walk in the room, and it's a massive room. There's probably seating for, I don't know, 400 or 500. And all 4 walls are just small booths of, call it, like food trucks, but inside a restaurant setting. So there's 3 or 4 seafood places. There's a place that just slices Spanish ham and cheeses. There's a Japanese place. There's a pizza place, like, you name it, gelato, pasta donata, all that. And so they, most of them are pretty smart about it. They got the electronic transponders. You go order a plate from here, plate from here, plate from here. Transponder has their name on it.
Yeah, that is a curse spot right there, dude. I love me a good food hall, man. I'm like, I'm in there. I'm in. Check it out. What's going on? What's the people up to? Let's grab a beer, sit down, chill out, and see it, man. Yeah, I mean, this sounds a lot like Istanbul, actually, is what you're describing. I don't know if it's completely different or what, but the vibe on the river with the bridge and the hills and, like, all accessible and get around, which I loved Istanbul and definitely want to take the family back to. So I guess we got to put Portugal on that. Well, Portugal's been on the list for a while.
Well, and the nice thing about it, too, is, like, while you're doing that stuff with the kids, you can also very easily get to beaches and get out into the country and do other things. So it's not just sightseeing stuff the kids might find boring. I also think there's a bunch of areas for play. Like, we, again, hanging out in the waterfront, bikes, scooters, all that stuff. Belém is a little town not too far away that we hung out in a bit with the kids on the water. So just, it's pretty casual. It's not a very uptight city. There's one main touristy area, their version of Times Square. But, I mean, even that, I took a picture and put it on Instagram. It's like the area is called Rocio, or at least that's what the subway station is called. So I always think about it as Rocio. And I'm standing in, like, the main portion of it, where, like, the main drag, where there's a bunch of hotels and stuff, comes down and hits all this, like, tourist shopping area. And I'm just looking up, and there's the castle on the hill in the background with the sunset. And it's like, that's cool. Like, it just, it feels very authentic. So,
but not as cool as me and Ed wearing the same clothes to record today and not being aware of it. We still did.
This
All right,
is
man.
our new this is our new strategy to get people to watch the pod instead of listen to it.
Yeah.
Come see what we're wearing.
All right, so you got to fly home. I remember the tagline of the conference is where the future goes to be born. So I hope you were born into the future or found your next unicorns that you're going to invest in. But you got to get home. And your trip home started with you texting our buddy Howie and me and asking, hey, what is the most offensive, impractical thing that I know Ed's going to hate way to fly home? Should I connect here and there, or should I just like do the most comfortable thing? And we're all like, yeah, you should do the comfortable thing. And you're like trying to justify it yourself. No, what if I like connect in like Orly and then fly to, what were you trying to do, man? And what did you end up doing?
I was trying to get extra dots. I will say too, I actually saw a presentation in Web Summit that was really interesting, and you'll know this from like your build time. It was Lufthansa, and it was they've created this thing called their digital hangar, which is where they're sort of like doing all of their enhancements to all the different airlines that they own, all the technology and stuff. They've onboarded 300 development people. Think about that.
Are they going to help with their business class seat that's now 7 years behind and needs to start over?
No, it's technology. Technology.
Okay,
man,
all right.
technology.
Well, if it's anything like their business class seat rollout, then they need help. But 300 developers for an airline, man, I wish every airline
for 7 airlines. For like they got like a billion. Lufthansa is a piece of pretty much everything in Europe.
Yeah.
Well, I guess.
How many airlines are? All right, so Lufthansa Group is like it's Lufthansa, Swiss Air, Eurowings, is City. What is it? Cityline? What is that? The airline?
Yep.
But there's the airline they're about to launch that the guys over at Dots Lines and Destinations were just talking about, like City Express or something like that. What else do they have?
Yeah, I just pulled
is
it up.
Austrian
Brussels,
part of that?
Austrian, Brussels, Air Dolomity, Edelweiss, Condor. And then I thought
always forget about that one. Yeah.
And I thought they bought a piece or were going to buy a piece of ITA too, the dumpster fire that is ITA.
Oh man, I don't get out of my wheelhouse here.
Yeah, which used to be like now I'm completely blanking. Alitalia, thank you. The dumpster fire that is. So and also Lufthansa, obviously. So they own
300 developers.
Yeah.
Well, that's good news. I hope they got some cool stuff planned to bring. All the airlines and hotels need to do it so bad.
There was a bunch of cool stuff that they talked about they were doing. But anyway, so what I had worked out was coach on Vueling, going Lisbon to Orly. Never been to Orly before, which is Paris's other airport, and then Orly to Heathrow because I had a quick meeting in Heathrow for an overnight thing. And so that was what I had landed on. And some folks in the Slack community thought I was nuts. I put a poll out, and literally nobody voted for that itinerary. You and Howie both told me that I was unbelievably crazy. And in true,
just because I know you're gonna hate it, like that's like
I probably would have. And it worked out. I did make the right choice because my meeting time needed to get moved up, and so like the connecting flight would have screwed with that. But in the end, I chose TAP business class, which is a solid product. I didn't get the throne seat, but I did choose.
Instead of connecting on Vueling and then Ryanair, whatever you're going to fly, I flew a throne seat on TAP Portugal. Okay, yeah, that's most Ed thing ever.
Most Ed thing ever. And I stayed at the Great Scotland Yard Hotel in London.
To stay there.
Yes, so it's an exceptional hotel, man, and not necessarily just from the quality standpoint. It's interesting, which is why I liked it. So it's part of Hyatt. I think it's an Unbound Collection property. Anyway, it is on the grounds of the old Scotland Yard. And there are like all these little touches in the room. So like there's a mustache that's actually a bottle opener bolted to the wall. There's a little fox that's your coat hook. On the back of the door for the bathroom is a bent key that's your towel holder. I mean, just all these little touches. And I was downstairs talking to somebody from the front desk. And I was like, oh, all these little touches are cool. And she's like, well, let me tell you a few more. She goes, this is actually where the first holding cells were. So if you turn around, then I turn around, and all the mirrors on the back of the registration area are framed up like jail cell bars. And then like there's a little like mustache and a monocle for Sherlock Holmes over hidden in the corner, etched into the glass and stuff like that. So all these little like Easter eggs throughout the property. There's a restaurant on site called The Parlor. I had a drink with a good buddy of mine from Five Guys. He runs the Five Guys in the UK. We had a good drink together in the bar. Awesome bar, high back leather chairs, snacks a whole bit. Like just a very authentic, high end English bar. Breakfast was solid, fully inclusive. There's a buffet, order off the menu, the whole bit. And then I was bringing home a pastel de nata for the kids, the pastries from Lisbon, or from Portugal that I love. And I'd frozen them in my room in Lisbon. And I brought them into the hotel. I'm like, hey, is there any way that you guys could like stick these in the freezer for me? Oh, yes, no problem, Mr. Pizzarello. And they stuck them in the freezer and came back to me when I left. And elevators were like the old-fashioned needles moving between floors, like a little bit digitized, all that. But like just like a cool property. So I really enjoyed it.
I want to stay there both times I went to London this year, but it was freaking expensive. And
like, it usually is. I caught a break. It wasn't quite as brutal as it normally is. It's right by Trafalgar Square, so it's reasonably well located. It's a little bit of a pain to get from Heathrow Express to there because you got to do the I think it's Bakersfield line, and then you walk. So it's like, like if you got suitcases, the Bakersfield line, like the escalators were down going from Heathrow Express to the Bakersfield, so like I had to hoof them and stuff like that. So a little bit mangy doing that, but that was still quicker than taking a cab. But I flew United business class home and was just, as I talked to you guys about in our tech group text thread, just underwhelming. Crew wasn't there very much for service. The food was, typically quite.
Did you get your burger? Get the United burger?
I got United burger as a second meal. I will say,
I think it's fine. I think it's good. Don't get the French fries, but like.
Well, the French fries were horrible. So when you had the burger, this is different than the burger that I had when I had it on a domestic flight. Was your burger sealed in like a puff pastry?
No.
Okay, so coming from the UK, it's actually like a Wellington. It's sealed in a puff pastry.
I came from the UK and I didn't get that.
Sorry.
Oh.
But I will say, just for record purposes, I landed Friday night. I had the burger right before I got off the plane. We drove to Raleigh Saturday morning for my daughter's. She had a cross-country meet down there at Nike Invitational race. Got down there. My stomach didn't feel great in the afternoon, and then I was violently ill Saturday night, which is like right in the sweet spot for a little foodborne illness. So I did have the burger, but it may have cost me, something cost me dearly Saturday night, but I don't know if it was the burger or not.
Did you go to the United Club in Heathrow?
I did. It's kind of a bummer because they used to have a global services club in there, and apparently they recently just killed it, and it's now part of the bigger club. Did you see the Big Ben clock when you were in there?
I don't remember. I just remember how deathly tired I was, and that it was like the most impressive United Club I've been in. Like it was nice. Like it was way better than United Club in the US.
Yeah, it was very nice. And because they took out removed the exclusivity part of the global services piece, that club is almost the size of the regular club. So when you walk in, when you get off the elevator, straight ahead is the regular club. If you pull a UE 180 degrees, that was where the global services club was. There's like 3 separate rooms. There's the space is much more well broken up because if you remember the club, it's sort of like it's one big room, and it was a little bit loud. It wasn't horrible, but there were a lot of nooks in the global services lounge. There's a big mini Big Ben. There was a wine tower, all that stuff, but it's all just normal club access now.
So they had enough global services flying through London every day to have a whole club for them. Like that's a lot of global services.
Well, so there's 2 daily departures to Dulles on United, sometimes 3. And I got down there, a few minutes before boarding was supposed to start. They have a dedicated global services lane for boarding for the United flights to Dulles. We were on 777, and I was a few minutes early. And like there's plenty of gate lice with United, but typically like your higher level elites aren't necessarily the folks that are there early. They may board early, but they're usually like zooming up right on time and getting on the plane. There were easily 10 global services in front of me when I got down there 5 minutes before boarding started.
Jeez, man.
So there's your answer. So that meant that there was probably another 15 or 20 behind me. So it was pretty deep for global services. And I'll give United a bit of credit here because I've been fairly critical of them from the soft benefits of the global services so far. I want to get home earlier because we had this long drive over the weekend, and so I had the 4 p.m. departure because it was significantly cheaper than the 12 p.m. departure when I booked. And there was like 3 or 4 seats left in business class. I ultimately paid to opt up to business class on the 4 p.m. because it was reasonable. I think it was like $400. And so I wasn't sure if plus points were going to clear. I called them the day before. I'm like, look, like I'm tired. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I got some family stuff. Dad's having surgery, all this stuff. Like, is there any way you can just switch me to the 12 o'clock flight? Fully expecting them to say, go pound sand. And the guy put me on hold for 30 seconds and then confirmed me in business class on the earlier flight. So
Score.
Yeah.
All
right. So before we get out of here, you ready for the question?
I am. I'm also ready for JetBlue to credit my flight from last Wednesday. That still is not in my account, but we'll work on that another time.
I couldn't figure out, and you and I talked about this, I couldn't figure out any way to take a reasonable JetBlue itinerary to Vegas before the end of the year, so I think I'm going to lose Mosaic. There was one thing I didn't check that I think I will check, which would be taking Delta to Dulles to JFK because they run that route 3, 4, 5 times a day and just buying a separate ticket on JetBlue. But I think I got to spend, $600 because a tile is $1?
Tile is $100, right? Is that right?
Right? Maybe. So I thought when I worked it out, I had to spend $600. for whatever that's worth.
Sounds
And I mean, I could, because I mean, like Vegas prices are back to being disgusting. I think I showed you guys a screenshot where it was like $2,800 for a one-way first class ticket on a connecting itinerary from Vegas, and like $700 in coach. Like,
pretty brutal.
All right, so here's the question. You know the majority of what's in my wallet. Our buddy Summer was talking about this in our group chat thread. Should I be signing up for the Venture X Business 150K offer? For folks that aren't familiar with it, Venture X now has a business version of the card. I have the personal version, but I use it for business. Capital One's a little wonky on sign up, so it's not even clear that I could get it. But that's 150,000 points when you spend 50,000 on the card in the first 6 months, which I could do from a business expense standpoint in the first half of next year. Should I be doing it?
I mean, my answer would be, why not? Like, tell me why not.
It would push me further back from any other Chase cards I might want to get, because I'm over 524, and this would put me way over because I've got at least one extra.
Business cards don't count towards 524.
I thought only Chase business cards didn't count to 524. Am I wrong about that?
No, there's only a few banks, and man, I'm gonna have to go find the Doctor of Credit article that says which banks report business cards to the credit line, but I don't think Capital One is one of them. But somebody please pipe into the Slack community or DMs and correct me on that. But I don't think the business card will affect your 524.
That makes it more likely that I would do it for sure. Yeah, 150,000 Cap One points. That's great.
But dude, that's 250,000 if you got to spend 50K. Like that's another $2,500 in free travel.
That's true.
You're paying $395 for $2,500. I'm gonna say yes.
Well, and you're getting 300 of it back in a travel credit. So which I can book. Like there's a hotel that we stay at in Reno that's on the portal that we can book and get 10x on. That's easy to use credit for. So I get a couple free nights for one of our employees and get the full value.
I do not see a reason not to do that.
All right. Well, I'll have to give you an update.
I will not be spending $50,000 and
nope.
Nope. I will not be doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I will be continuing to hammer 3x and 6x on everything.
I did get approved, and the Chase Freedom card is in the house. We haven't used it yet, but Chase Freedom Unlimited is in the house as well. So.
Dude, timer's ticking, man. You're wasting some days there. I actually did some quick math based on our first month of using it and put a tweet up today. It's at least going to cost Chase $3,000 in value for me, and they're getting it's no annual fee card, and I will not revolve. I will not carry a balance, but I'm going to get $3,000 worth of travel points. So I don't. Again, I don't get it.
We got to talk about this in more detail at some point too, because like I feel like in the grand scheme of things, I feel like I'm a pretty bad customer for Built too, just based on the way that I earn and redeem. So I like some of these products, it's
pretty much everybody listening to this podcast is probably a terrible customer for Built. so go tell your friends. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Don't tell them about the good stuff. Tell them rent day is on the 2nd.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the Chase is going to get equally hurt for me. I gotta get ready and ramp up my spending on the Chase Freedom Unlimited card. So that's on the list.
The best thing about it has been, here you go, Mrs. Kerr. Use this card and this card only. Yeah. I'll talk to you about it next October. And she's like, great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. You got any travel this week? Thanksgiving week?
We are going camping. We're going up to my brother's on the other side of Atlanta for lunch on Thanksgiving. And then that evening, driving up to the North Georgia mountains with the RV. And we're hanging out there for the long weekend. And it is going to be so fantastic. I was down at my in-laws today working on finally got my stove in my oven work again, finally, after 6 months. So, dude, don't ever, everybody listen to me. Do not ever underestimate the know-how of a redneck, man. Just talking to my sister-in-law's beau, and the dude just works with his hands for a living. And like, I'm like, hey man, I got this new part I got to put in this propane stove, but it's a little tricky because you also got to wire it up and a million other things. And he's like, let's go take a look at it. And he's like, he looks at it for 3 seconds. He's like, no problem. I'm like, yeah, but we need some zip ties. We need heat shrink to rewire this thing. We need these really weird things.
And of course, he has all that stuff.
He has half of it. I'm not kidding. This is no exaggeration. He has half of it in his pockets. He has the Leatherman that's got the weird attachments. He's got this little mag thing we need. He's got zip ties in his car. He had everything in his car or in his pockets. Yeah. And we got it done. And I'm like, my God, these guys just know how to do everything. It's so awesome.
I will tell you, speaking of camping, I found a gift for you that I have ordered, and it's for camping. It's going to make your camping experience better, and I hope to never see it. Yeah. Drop ship right to you. Like, you send me pictures of it, put it that way. But I hopefully it will make your camping experience better. I saw it, did some research on it. Seems to get good reviews, so I would like to add it to the Kerr family camping mix.
All right. Well, now I'm excited about this next camping trip. Besides that, man, no, I was in New York for 2 nights last week, and I hope that's, knock on wood, my last 2 nights for the year. I kind of early here in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll take
I
the
love
over on that. Yeah.
I love my people up in New York, but man, if I don't, it was so rough making the trip one more time. So we'll see, man. But besides that, we got a Disney trip, and that's it, man. I am trying to lay low this December and recharge a little bit to hit the new year, man. I really am making a conscious effort to do that.
Yeah. Well, we always talk about it this time of year. It's like, oh, last trip of the year. Like that really has any bearing whatsoever on the fact that January will be right back to the madness. So I did cancel my Auckland trip, booked a short Disney trip in its place. I've got that.
Are we overlapping? We hadn't talked about this yet. I don't know if we're overlapping or not.
I don't think so. You're closer to Christmas, right?
No, I'm in the middle of the month because the kids have the Sorcerer's Pass, and the 19th is the last day that you can go with that. So we had to fit it in before the 19th.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Same, we're dressed the same. We might as well dress the same from Disney. Like, we do it again.
I love it. All right, yeah. Well, if our dates match on Disney, I will definitely bring my built sweatshirt. Although it'll take up like half my suitcase. This thing is bulky, man.
It's worth it, man. It's so comfortable.
It is. It's very comfortable. All right. Get out of here. Have a great Thanksgiving for everybody that's listening, and that's about when we'll be dropping this. There's plenty of Black Friday deals out there. Remember, though, that some of the best Black Friday deals are the ones that you don't end up purchasing. So do your price checks. Check your history. Camel, I think, is a great site to see what something's been priced at for the last year or two and figure out if you're actually getting a deal before you push the button. I got my eye on a few things here and there. We'll be spreading them out in the Slack community and talking about them on the old Twitter, too. Mr. Kerr, hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and maybe we'll actually see each other one more time this year after going 3-0 on our bet. But until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Nerd alert.